Welcome. This is Brian Wood, Medical Director for the Mountain West AETC Project Echo Telehealth Program. Each of our weekly sessions starts with a short talk focused on issues relevant to HIV clinical medicine. The following talk was recorded live here at University of Washington. We will now take you to this week's talk.
Thanks, Brian. So things are relatively slow in the PrEP world right now, but I keep hearing about Lenacapavir, and so wanted to take a little step into what might be coming down in the future for the PrEP pipeline. The typical disclosure that we only have 3 medicines currently approved in the United States. They're not all approved in all populations, and because we're talking about the pipeline, we are definitely talking about things that are not FDA approved. This is my typical disclaimer. I have no affiliations with any of these companies that make these medicines. So where are we today as of December 2023? I think we're still in December 2023. We have 3 formulations for PrEP. What you see on the left, so there is FTC-TDF, so emtricitabine tenofovir disoproxil fumarate. I'm going to say it once. That is brand name Truvada. You all know that. FTC-TAF, tenofovir alafenamide, brand name Descovy, and then injectable cabotegravir. And what I have on this slide is a previous slide that I've shown you from the 2 sets of guidelines we have, the IAS USA guidelines that came out last year, and the HHS CDC guidelines that are in revision that we're hoping to see in 2024. And you can just see who these medicines are approved for and what their risks are. But I was just thinking about this. Why aren't we done? We have good PrEP medicines. They work really well. Why do we need more PrEP? More PrEP studies, more PrEP options? And this is just my list. It's in no real order. But so as I mentioned, not all PrEP options are approved in all populations. So FTC-TAF only currently approved for use in folks who are not at risk from vaginal or frontal sex. And not everything has been studied in people who inject drugs. We know that daily pill taking, whether it's ART or PrEP, is challenging for many people to do every day. Many people don't want to come into a clinic on a regular basis, whether that's every 3 months for labs or every 2 months for injections. Maybe they want to do all of their PrEP at home. Some people prefer some side effects or want to avoid other side effects, the kidney issues, all sorts of things. One of the things that Sharon Hillier always says is that when you have more options, that people can make better choices for themselves. And then I think we have some theoretical reasons for more PrEP. One is when you have more options, there is more competition in the pharmaceutical marketplace, and perhaps competition will drive lower costs. I'm not sure we've seen that, but that's one theoretical reason. And then if we can find PrEP options that aren't used as first-line antiretroviral therapy for people who acquire HIV, maybe we can minimize the chance of increasing drug resistance with PrEP. So even though we prevent more HIV infections with PrEP than we generate new cases of drug resistance, we still do generate a few cases of drug resistance for people who acquire HIV and then are taking PrEP, which is suboptimal therapy. So we still need more things. When I'm looking and when I looked to see what was out there, the place I typically go is the AVAC website, which is down at the bottom. AVAC stands for the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition. Well, this isn't vaccines, but this is about medicines that will prevent HIV. And they often have this timeline. They've kept this, I think, for the last 10 plus years. The current one seems to be missing, gives you a not found 404, but this was in one of their publications. Again, you can see that in the link below. And I'm going to go through all of these options, talking about the vaginal ring and where the dapivirine ring and combination rings stand. Then we'll talk a little bit about long-acting injectables, about oral PrEP options coming down, and then about the dual prevention pill, or DPP, which is going to bring more confusion into the algorithm world, as there is another DPP. However, let's just jump in. So I'm going to share just a little bit about the dapivirine ring. You may remember that I did a talk on this, I don't remember, probably a year ago when the ring was at the FDA. There were 2 large randomized studies that showed that the dapivirine ring decreased HIV acquisition, but it was only by 27% in one study and 40% in another. So nothing looking like the 90+% we see in individuals who are using it for oral PrEP. So the FDA application was withdrawn for this product in the US, but it is approved outside of the US for HIV prevention. So not currently moving forward in the United States, but maybe if any of you do work internationally, you'll be using this. However, what has been predicted and what we're starting to see are combination rings done either in different formulations or in different combinations. So the first is that the standard dapivirine ring that I just mentioned had to be replaced every 30 days. That is currently being looked at as a comparison with a similar ring that is every 90 days. So one of the issues being if you have to change it every 30 days, maybe you have adherence issues, and if you are having to only to change it every 3 months, that you'll get a longer benefit of protection. So that is in phase 1 and is currently enrolling. Phase 1 is just sort of looking at side effects and acceptability in small populations. So a lot of these medicines and products that we're talking about are still in early phase. Similarly, there is a tenofovir and FTC ring that is in phase 1. And then there's a lot of excitement about combinations, both as pills as well as these vaginal rings. So these multi-purpose rings that can provide protection against both PrEP and pregnancy. And there is, again, a dapivirine, I cannot levonorgestrel, someone can correct me on how to pronounce that better, that is in phase 1-2. And then in development is a tenofovir, similar contraception pill. So vaginal rings, you're going to continue to see investigated, again, just to give people more options. But as I said, I really got into this talk because I wanted to learn a little bit more about lenacapavir. And lenacapavir currently approved as HIV treatment in investigation as for prevention. I've clearly stolen this slide from David and the National HIV curriculum, and I cannot go into all of this, but I just want to show you, I don't know if you're going to be able to see my arrow, that lenacapavir, which is a capsid inhibitor, it impacts HIV replication in multiple places, including nuclear uptake, virus assembly and release, and the capsid formation, which I think is over here, but I can't see because I've got it blocked with all of you. And there are others who can probably explain the mechanisms of action on this talk more than I can, but I just wanted to look at where it is and where it is in terms of the data around prevention. So there's a lot more data about treatment that I'm not sharing with you. I could only find 2 publications that were looking at lenacapavir as PrEP, first in a IV intravenous challenge model in macaques, and then in a rectal SHIV challenge macaque model that prevented many, but not, of course, all of those challenge infections. And the prevention dosing they are doing as in these studies, which I'll show you in a second. So oral tablets, similar to the way that injectable cabotegravir did oral lead-in. They did a month, but oral lenacapavir is pills on day 1 and 2, and then subcutaneous injections every 6 months or every 26 weeks in the study, so they can be more specific. The nice thing about subcutaneous injections compared to intramuscular injections of cabotegravir is that people can theoretically do subcutaneous injections by themselves, whereas as someone who has given myself intramuscular injections, I can tell you that it is very challenging and requires you to be quite flexible. But these are the studies that are going on that are likely to lead to, if effective, likely to lead to an FDA submission. And the first I want to point out, the Purpose 2, all put on by the company, some supported by the HIV Prevention Trials Network, as you can see below. But Purpose 1 is the study that is being done in cisgender adolescent girls and women, and is a comparison of lenacapavir. And notice that this is FTC-TAF. This is the study that is anticipated, if successful, to lead to a FDA submission for an indication for cisgender women for FTC-TAF. Again, currently a population left out in the Discover trial that was done previously and led to FDA approval of this medicine, but the FDA limited the indication to cisgender men and folks not at risk from vaginal or frontal sex. So this is the study. It's anticipated primary completion next year. So this is something that you should be looking out for soon, both for Lenacapavir effectiveness, but also for FTC-TAF, oral PrEP, in this new population. Similar to the Discover trial, there is Purpose 2, which is a large study being done in the United States and outside of the United States in cisgender men, transgender folks, and gender non-binary persons with an expected completion date in 2025. For folks who are interested, there are local study sites for this if people are interested in participating in research or have patients who are interested in participating in research on Lenacapavir. And then there are finally additional PK studies and acceptability studies in cisgender women in the United States and people who inject drug in the United States. And then we're starting to see additional implementation science research on Lenacapavir. There's Purpose 5 is listed when I did a Google search for this as a persistence study in Europe. Moving on to longer acting formulations, these aren't quite as far along as the Purpose studies are, but Merck was working on islatravir for prevention. It is no longer being studied for pre-exposure prophylaxis because of side effects, namely lower blood cell counts. But Merck has another product that is in the same category. It's a NRTTI. Just we're all going to get confused as we move forward, which is a nucleoside reverse transcriptase translocation inhibitor that is in phase 2 trials, still looking at safety tolerability. Phase 2s are larger studies looking at larger populations, but they are looking at it in low-risk participants, so there will be no efficacy data. Of course, the issue is that this is not a placebo-controlled trial, so it can't be given to high-risk folks who really warrant PrEP. But we're going to learn some more information, and then presumably that if it is safe, it will move forward into a larger trial to look at some preliminary efficacy. And then finally, just to move back to that dual prevention pill, I mentioned a little bit ago about vaginal rings with 2 purposes, but these are single pills co-formulated with HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis plus contraception. This is being done by a generic pill maker combining the FTC-TDF with the birth control pills in a blister pack as 21 combination pills and 7 PrEP-only pills. You can see that in the photo. Of course, the issue is that traditionally that oral contraceptives have been done as 28 days, of which 7 are placebo or you take no pills, but we want people to continue to take their PrEP during that time. There was actually a lot of discussion about them not being blue, like PrEP, again, to decrease stigma and increase privacy. So there are a fair number of crossover adherence and acceptability studies with planned study completion that were supposed to be done in December 2023. Obviously, we haven't seen those results yet, with a possible FDA submission of this in the future. And I think that will be an interesting thing to talk about for our folks who are assigned female at birth who are able to become pregnant, to think about doing this and think about how we counsel the combination of birth control, contraception plus PrEP. So some fun things to think about in the future. And I think that is all I found as we move forward. Obviously, there's a lot in even earlier stages, but I didn't want to get you all excited about things that may not actually ever come to fruition. So that is the end of my talk. I will stop sharing and see if there are questions.
Thank you for watching this edition of the Mountain West AETC Project Echo Didactic Series. If you like this talk, please click the red subscribe button and please check out other talks in our series. Until next time, this is Brian Wood, Medical Director, signing off.